welcome to all of you. If I don't know you, I'm Jessie Mahoney. I am a pediatrician and I run Pause and Presence, where I help physicians, clinicians with mindfulness, coaching, yoga, living their best life. And this is my son, Slade, who has helped me figure out how to use AI. I was the biggest skeptic of all. And even though all three of my kids use it and teach it and build things with it, and my other two sons, who are very tech savvy, could not help me because they knew too much and speak a different language. And Slade is my son, who's a natural born teacher. So he helped me figure out how to use it in Pause and Presence in ways that actually felt authentic to me. And so, as many of you know, I had him on the podcast to share because it was fun and transformative and honestly super helpful what he's helped me set up and the process of setting it up. And now I can actually do things myself and set them up myself, though I still consult sometimes when it's not working the way I want. So I asked Slade to come and share this with all of you. And I will say that I totally put him up to this. I put him up to coming on the podcast. Well, put him up to teaching me, then coming on the podcast. And I also put him up to building a side business to help other people because I said that's what he should do because he was so good at it. So this is all on me, but thankfully he's agreed because as you all know, I'm wise, right? Anyway, he's agreed for now. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Slade, and feel free to jump in and share who you are and what you want to share with folks.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. And thanks so much, everybody, for showing up. Really means a lot. I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen. Oops, where did you guys go? Okay. I can see it.
We'll be on the top when you share your screen.
You're actually on like the wait. I have two screens. So
Okay.
anyways, you're on the bottom. So if I'm looking down, I'm actually looking at the people. So how I wanted to kind of spend today is first just talking a bit about kind of like AI, what it is, what it's good at, what it's not good at, practical uses of it, uses for it in your business. And then I actually want to spend most of the time on this call, like going through actually how to make a tool for yourself. So we're going to be using ChatGPT just because it's the most kind of common and accessible. To do the full thing, you do need a paid version. But what I'm going to go through it and like do it live as I'm going to build a tool for my mom, just because I think that's easiest. And then once you we'll have the recording. So once you kind of, see it, go through it, you can either go along through it with me, or go back to the video after and build an assistant for yourself. And these assistants can be anything from like, be my travel agent to be my recipe person, build me a weekly meal plan to like, I built one that was like I do sales for my main job. So it was like a cold call trainer, like, something that interacted that I could talk to and it could talk back to me. So there's a whole kind of gambit on what this could be. But first, I just wanted to kind of get a pulse check and start with like what questions are you all hoping are answered today? Like what questions do you have about AI just off the bat? I'm not going to go through and answer every single one, but if you guys could just throw them into the chat, that way I'll have that in mind as we go through this and I can touch on some of these different things as they come up in the topics that I wanted to touch on. Or if you want to talk to, that's all good, but I kind of figured most people would prefer to chat. Yeah, hallucinating is a big one. Love that. Oh, cooler. Awesome, Rebecca. Perfect. Yeah, these are all great. I'll continue to kind of like read them as we go in the chat, but I'll just keep going on with my presentation. And as you think of more things, just throw them in the chat. And the whole goal of this is to be a learning session. So at any point, if you have something that just you want to ask, just unmute yourself or throw it in the chat. I'll try to see it in the chat. Maybe my mom can help me. Um, but if you ever want to come off mute and just ask a question in the moment, please do so. This is meant to be a teaching session, a learning session. So if you have questions, like ask them. That's the whole point as we go through. Okay. Awesome. So a little bit about me. My mom gave a nice intro, but I live down in San Diego. I've got young twins and another young child whose birthday is this weekend, actually. I've worked in consulting with data, with AI for a number of different organizations over a number of different years. But I really think, for me, I was actually on maybe not necessarily the cutting edge, but I had a really good mentor that taught me how to use AI like 3 or 4 years ago before, um, things were really, I would say, like mainstreamed and kind of populated throughout the world. And I was also in grad school when ChatGPT came out, which was came out between my first and second year, which was like a big like disruptor in the classroom for sure. Um, so that was really cool. But I like to say, my job is to be a teacher and a translator and to really help folks find where AI can help you take the weight off so you can spend more time on those things that matter, right? I think if we use AI effectively, it can be a real multiplier and allow us to take off the burden of some of those kind of redundant administrative tasks. But one of the hardest things to do is like learn how to talk to it and learn how to make it work for you effectively. And that's the goal of today. And hopefully you walk away from this like feeling a little bit better about how to talk to all of the AIs out there. Okay, I'm also curious, one more chat interaction. Where has AI given you time back recently? I'm curious like how you guys are currently using it. And then where has it let you down? I'll also share some of the ways that I have been using it more recently. Um, how I started using it as I used to work for this company that we have to like, not bid, but, write proposals for RFPs and stuff. And the initial use case that I used it for was creating, like rough drafts of proposals. And it took a lot of iterations to get it good, but that was kind of my introduction to these tools and to AI and to kind of giving things back. Let me down with medical questions. Yep. I would say I don't know if AI is the best thing for medical questions, to be quite honest. Oh, yep, Laura, the saving it is a big issue, I think, that a lot of folks see. And something I deal with too. Like if you don't know how to kind of properly save and create these assistants, AI does not do a good job remembering what you talked about yesterday, unfortunately.
So can you
Yes.
share two things which changed my life? It's research mode or thinking mode as opposed to the other mode. So if you're researching something, it takes a lot longer, but it gives you better output. And then also, because I was not smart enough to know this, and they may not be smart enough to know this, and you told me this, like, what some people might not know what an assistant is, or a bot, or I don't even know what they're called, but they're called different things in different programs. So,
Correct. Yeah, I will go through that.
okay.
Don't worry. What my mom's talking about with the research versus the other one, the other levels, is every AI module that you use, whether it's ChatGPT, and I'll show you where this is in ChatGPT, or Perplexity or Claude, they have different levels of like, I guess I think they're processing power. I'm actually not quite sure what they are, but they're kind of like different versions of the AI. So what my mom's saying is there you can kind of toggle on and off. Do I want Claude 4.5 or do I want ChatGPT research? And they have different kind of capabilities. So some will spend more time thinking and more time researching. And you won't be able to get an answer as quickly, but chances are it would be more accurate and more comprehensive. So just to kind of start at a baseline, I'm sure you all know some of this, but what AI knows and what it doesn't. So it knows, general knowledge from the web, books, research. At the end of the day, it's really a pattern recognition tool. And the only patterns it really can recognize are ones that have been published publicly or things that have been published publicly. And those are, common processes, workflows, industries. It's really good at reading languages and processing information like that. But at the end of the day, it's a pattern recognizer. So a lot of the times with the hallucinations or with, sometimes a lot of times it will give you incorrect information, just like factually incorrect, like this is not true. And it speaks very confidently, right? So that just comes from like the pattern recognizing that it does, and it's trained to be confident, unfortunately. Or fortunately, kind of depending on what you say, but I would say unfortunately. So when it confidently gives you a wrong answer, I would say that's the time where it's like, okay, you're not quite recognizing the pattern that I'm hoping you're going to recognize. Sometimes that comes from how you're prompting it, and sometimes it just comes from like the knowledge that AI actually has available to it. So in terms of what it doesn't know, that's just kind of all of what it does know is that's what's baked into it to start. What it doesn't know anything that happened recently, unless you kind of enable the search capabilities to allow it to access your computer, which have, pros and cons, and we can talk about that. It doesn't know anything about you or anything about your context or situation, doesn't know anything about your files, email, internal data. It doesn't know anything about you unless you give it that information. And that information you give it, it will start to weight that more heavily the more you talk about that specific thing. So just some things to keep in mind as you're talking to it. And I think kind of the main fix here is we need to stop asking AI for facts that it doesn't have and start giving it the context that you need to give it to, make it effective for you.
Someone asked in the chat about charting, and I know one thing we talked about is that since Slade's not a physician, he doesn't necessarily understand charting, but people who use it well for charting give it information before you start the visit about what you're doing, and that just tied into what you said. So giving it specific information that you know about the patient, if it's listening and giving you your patient visit, the more it knows about you or your style or what you like, the better output comes in. And this takes you actually also knowing what you like, which was a challenge for me. I had to really take some time to figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point is you need to go into it, and we'll get into this in the live demo, but you really need to know like what you want out of it before you start talking to it. And it can kind of help you figure out what you want based on prompts and questions it can ask you. But I think that's really important is you need to know your output before you start giving it input. So what AI can do, what it can't do, let's make it super practical. Like AI is really good at writing, editing, summarizing, anything involving language, explaining complicated things in plain terms, really good at brainstorming, really good at translating and rewriting tone. But it really can struggle with factual accuracy of recent events, knowing your specific situation without you telling it, and replacing your judgment. I think that's the biggest thing at the end of the day. Like AI is not you, AI is not human. You are the only person who can interpret what it's telling you and apply it to your life the best way that you know how. Don't let it decide your life for you. And even if you're using it for like therapy work or life coaching or helping, which I have done in the past, you still need to take the information that it gives you and really like sit with it and process it and apply it to your life, because that's the most important thing. Okay, so practical uses just for everyday life. Just some real life examples. I've recently used it for pasting insurance policies or leases into it. Ask for really complicated documents in plain English. I think that's one of the most useful tools for AI. Or if you talk to it quite a bit and it knows your context and it knows things about you. For instance, in this lease, this most recent thing that I used, it was like, I was signing a new lease, I have young kids, like knowing my context, what do I need to be aware of in this lease? So you can kind of train it to know things about you and then interpret these in ways that are specific to you. Really good at drafting things, preparing for hard conversations. Role playing is actually something it's pretty good at. It's not 100%, but it's just good to like practice a couple times, whether it's sales, whether it's a tough conversation. And then things like planning trips, planning meals, um, those are things that I would say are really good everyday uses of AI. In terms of business, some of you guys are already using this a lot in your daily work, in your daily life, in your side businesses, whatever it might be. Really good at drafting weeks of like social posts, LinkedIn posts, drafting proposals, drafting newsletters, um, summarizing contracts and vendor agreements, also generating ideas, pitches, reviewing emails. I use it for that a lot. But I think at the end of the day, like, none of these really require technical skills. There are, bigger things like what Lara was asking about with like how to do design and how to um, create images. I would say those use cases are more on like the more complicated end. Um, but from a basic standpoint, I would say these are like general business cases, uses that folks are using it for. So what's out there? There's obviously a full gamut of things. People always ask, what should I start with? What should I use? Whichever one you're actually going to open and get to know, because they're all pretty similar. Um, but whichever one you use, like just get to know it, get to use it, know the back end, know the front end, like really understand how to prompt it. And those tools you'll be able to apply them to any other AI that you use in the future. And then kind of like future AI, some of you guys are using this for charting, which is, I think charting, I don't actually know the whole medical world, but agentic AI, and that is like AI you interact with, AI you can speak to, that speaks back to you. My brother and I are currently working for a company, or working on a company that can call folks and schedule them in for certain things. And they can say, hey, I'm not available Tuesday, but I am available Thursday. And it records that information, saves it, and then it can call them on Thursday if a shift opens, things like that. But I think at the end of the day, what's really important is these tools are going to get dramatically more powerful in the next 12 to 24 months. So we're going to see like just a huge waterfall of, I think, agentic AI, which means like interactive AI over the phone, over texting. Um, all of these things I think are just going to become more infiltrated in our daily lives, which is why it's important to understand kind of the back end, what it's doing, how you can prompt it, how you can build tools to use this. And all that kind of stuff. Okay, just one thing I just always want to touch on with AI is privacy. So again, all of these companies we're working for are like, they're companies, they're private companies. It's not your AI bot. Do not paste in any like sensitive information. Describe things in general terms, like you don't need to use real names. If you are, like, if you do want to do that, use the paid tiers because they have better security and better safeguards around how they use your data. Don't use the free versions because I don't know this for sure, but I think we can look at the history of a lot of technology companies. They're probably taking your data and using it in some type of way that probably maybe not the best for society. To be determined. That's kind of a personal opinion. But don't paste in like sensitive information that you wouldn't put in a public document, basically. So we're going to jump into kind of the
Can I
live
ask you
demo.
a question about that? Can you
Oh
go
yeah,
back to the last slide? Because I
yes.
didn't know this. What is this turning off the chat history in settings? I'm like, I don't know about that.
So sometimes, so when you have your account,
Yeah.
you'll always have a settings and your account settings. You can turn off the chat history, which means it doesn't remember things about you,
Okay.
which can be frustrating a lot of times. So I don't actually turn that off because I want it to remember things, but I also have the paid version, like the 20 month version. So if you're using the free version, definitely go into settings and turn off the chat history, which means it will kind of delete your chat history after every time you log out or log off or
Okay.
close the window. But the downside of that is it won't remember the things about you.
So you have to
So
retell it all about you. Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're really going to work on prompting AI, knowing how to talk to it, knowing what to ask, being very, very like specific about what we want from it, what our goals are. That's what we're going to get down to in the next, say, 20, 25 minutes or so. Again, just we already kind of touched on what it doesn't know, but since we're about to jump into this live, really remember it has a knowledge cutoff, doesn't know what happened recently. It doesn't know you unless you've given it context. You're going to give it context. And like we just talked about with the chat history, a lot of conversations start fresh. So it doesn't remember you session to session unless you have the paid versions. That's a really important thing to remember. Okay, so right now we are going to work on a custom tool. We can call these tools assistants. Um, I
Project.
call it assistants because it's in ChatGPT, and these are called my GPTs, and I think they're called GPT assistants. Um, but what we'll do is I'm going to put this link in the chat. This is an assistant that I built that's going to help us kind of streamline the process a little bit. So click on this link in the chat. It will take you to ChatGPT, and like I said, I'll start going through it. But essentially, what it's going to do is it's going to prompt you for some questions that I kind of pre-programmed in. The goal of this is to get all of the context necessary for you to create your AI assistant that does X, Y, or Z, like whatever you want it to do for you. I would recommend things like we're going to build a transcript um, processor for my mom. So things like that with language are generally the best topics for it because it does need a lot of context. But it will prompt you for a lot of this context as we go along. Just making sure you guys can, or maybe mom, you can open the link, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And again, hop in with questions. We'll try to monitor the chat. Um, but yeah, so just, I guess I'll just start with like a general overview on just, so this is ChatGPT. These here are GPTs, which means on the left side here, which are like tools that I have built specifically. So using prompts like this. Um, so we'll just start by saying, hi. All right, it's going to ask us 6 questions, one at a time, and then it'll build us a complete set of instructions that we can paste into ChatGPT, Claude, or any other custom GPT, whether it's Perplexity, and blanking, Gemini, or any of the other ones out there. So tell me about your business, side project, personal endeavor. This could be anything from like, I'm hoping to make a weekly meal planner. I'm going to use the example of my mom. And it's important, or I think this is interesting because pause and presence coaching and a lot of the stuff my mom writes is publicly available on the internet. I'm going to like tell it that I am creating an assistant. A tool to synthesize her podcast transcripts from called them healing medicine. Like YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Um, what would you say about what the Healing Medicine podcast is, and why does it matter, Mom? I'm sure I could think of, you're on mute. I'm sure I could think of something.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Um, it's a podcast for physicians. It's about mindfulness and living a more intentional, purposeful life.
Okay, perfect.
Does it need more?
No, I'm going to say you can find more information on Jessie's website. It's website, pauseandpresence.com.
Yeah. Or Jessie Mahoney, MD. It's actually probably what it's going to find.
Okay. Awesome. Who's the target audience for? It didn't really take in that first question. It is for listeners.
All of those things.
Yeah. All people mentioned.
But
And
I think
this could also be my audience is me. I need to do this.
yes. Okay. And I think also, since we did this before, I will know right now that we're not being specific enough because I didn't get the output I wanted when I wasn't specific enough.
So
Say
again,
it
we're going
out
to go
loud too,
specific.
because not everyone's on video. Some
Yes, sorry.
people can't
So it's
see.
asking me,
Yeah.
what do we actually want to produce from each podcast transcript? So there it's asking me, it's recognizing that we are going to input information. We're going to input the podcast transcript, or say you're building like a weekly meal plan builder. You can input like, I'm going to input what vegetables I have this week and what cuisine I would like to cook in, for example. So it's recognizing like, okay, there's going to be some input. What do we want the output to look like? And here it's helpful to be as specific as possible. It's giving you some kind of examples, at least for this scenario. Like, do you want timestamps? Do you want quote highlights? Do you want SEO keywords? All of those. What does a great result look like? I think that's the most important question that's asking here. What does a great result look like? And that's kind of what I mean by knowing what your ideal output is before you start prompting the GPT and before you start inputting, because it's really like ChatGPT, any of these AIs, they don't know what you're looking for. All they're doing is scanning the internet and scanning what's publicly available for things that are like what you're telling. It's that pattern recognition. But if you're someone like my mom, who is very particular, or specific, whatever you want to call it.
I'm not offended. It's true. Everyone on this call is very particular about their output.
I mean, we all are, right? It's our output, especially if it's your business.
Right.
You want to be very specific into what that looks like. So Laura, if it's
we actually fed it in this case, which I think is really helpful, ones that I had written that I liked.
Yep, exactly. And that I'll show that there's a space to do that after you create the instructions, which is like upload your gold standard output of what this looks like. Usually we're trying to create something we've already built before, but by hand, like on our own.
I'm thinking for Laura who wants I can't think of the word, but pictures or illustrations. Can you put into that upload other things that are out there that are like what she wants?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's essentially what I mean by the gold star examples. I'll show you exactly where to do that. We need to make the instructions first. Then there's a section for creating the assistant, which will allow you to upload files and documentation, which will ideally help your assistant understand more what the ideal output is and help like funnel all of the information you're giving it towards that ideal output.
Okay.
So just back to this, needs show notes. I can copy and paste a YouTube link. We need a brief summary of the podcast. I know this is not going to be exactly what you want, Mom. We already
That's okay.
but key
I'll be
takeaways
flexible today.
um,
The mindful moment. Timestamps is good.
timestamps of key topics, and a mindful summary. Also give me hashtags for SEO optimization on these three.
The other thing that I've learned it can do is to have it recommend 3 related podcasts. So you can have it search and find of my previous podcasts that are related to this one. So if you enjoyed this, that can also be a really helpful tool.
Okay, perfect. So it's saying, okay, I just want to make sure I have more information. I want to make sure I have all the information. If you're building this on your own, you can keep this link and like continue to use this as much as you want. It's out there for free. It's not like you don't have to worry about any payment or anything or whatever. But if you were making this without this assistant that I've built, these are the things that you really want to make sure that you have in it. That's why I've asked it to like ask these follow-up questions to make sure we really drive down and nail down exactly what we want, to try to get all the relevant information before, as we build our assistant, to make sure that when we put in our inputs, the outputs come as well. How long should it be? Let's see, 1 short paragraph. I'll say 5 sentences. Timestamps. Just do.
The other piece in here is I asked it to tell me how long it should be for the different platforms. Like could it just do what was right for each platform so I don't have to know, which I didn't want to spend any time figuring that out.
Yeah. So if we were writing this without the assistant, we would really want to say, I'm looking for an output that has a short paragraph, about 5 sentences, I only want 5 timestamps. I really would like the mindful moment summary to be a short meditation style insight, not an actionable item or something else. And then this one is really important too, is what should your assistant sound like? Think about your brand and your voice. And if it's something as simple as like, you know, cooking, you could have fun with it and say like, I would like it to talk to me like it is Anthony Bourdain, or some things that I've done like, please talk to me for ones that are like coaching. Please talk to me like you are Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors basketball team, who approaches everything with, you know, um, like positive reinforcement, joy, and but also gives tough love. Things like that. Like you can really play around with this, but really think about your output. So the output here is going to be your transcript. We want this to be written in the style of, oops.
And I will add here, one of the things I found most helpful was to tell it what I didn't want, what I wasn't.
That will be
Wasn't
next. Yeah.
fluffy, poetic, and words that I never say, because AI says a lot of words that you would never say. So if you notice that, like what words do you say and what words do you never say, or what do you not want to sound like? Because as Slade said, I'm very particular. The other thing I would just add about this project is that it's taking something that I did not need to do. I had already done the creative part in recording the podcast and deciding what was going to be about. And so I'm literally feeding it the transcript, but I don't need to make the show notes. There's no benefit for me in doing this, and probably minimal benefit to others. And so this was a task that I didn't actually need to do. It's one of those, I forget what was on your list, but like summary tasks. And so thinking about things in your life like that is really fun to think about what can it do well, because it can't do everything well.
No, summaries it does do extremely well, I think. And also research. If you're like, hey, give me the relevant research on X topics, or new vaccine updates or whatever it might be, and synthesize that for me. I think it does a really good job of that. One thing I want to call out here is it is asking me for follow-ups. Like, tell me more about the tone. Okay, calm and grounded. They're like, all right, but we need more descriptors. So I'm going to ask it, because my mom has a lot of public information out there, or if you have, this would be the time where like, if you have an example, you're like, I want it to sound like this, copy and paste that in there. Like this chunk, I want it to sound like this, put that in there. I'm going to ask it if it has access to your blog posts. It should.
Well, it should. And for any of you who listened to the podcast about this, Chat, one of these robots told me that my blog was exceptional, but it was invisible because I had never tagged it, which is what AI needs to read it. So maybe it knows my blog now, but maybe it doesn't. So I asked it if it could tag it for me and give me the tags, and I just have to upload it, which was amazing. So
yeah, so it's saying paste a sample of her blog or really describe the tone of voice. So I'll say you can find her blogs here, and then I'm just going to copy and paste an example. Again, if you don't have this information publicly posted, that's okay, because a lot of the stuff that I do specifically is like just for me. Like I'm not publicly posting it out there. So I would upload documents that I've created, like, hey, I want this is my writing style, and I would take like cover letters or short stories that I've written or anything like that. Okay. This one's really important. What should your GPT assistant never say?
favorite one.
Never be pushy or salesy. Don't be robotic or generic. I think we did put healing voice actually when we did create this, but that's a really good descriptor as well, MJ.
Yeah, add that. Tell it that.
Okay, please add that this should have a voice. Some things that like are kind of dead giveaways for AI, specifically with ChatGPT, that I always like to put in is the dashes, right? You know something's written by AI if it has a lot of dashes, because I feel like most people, at least from what I see, most people don't use a lot of dashes when they write. Like that's more of like a conversational thing. For whatever reason, ChatGPT loves to put in a ton of dashes. So I always put in like, take out all dashes as punctuation.
You also told me to tell it to not sound like AI or ChatGPT,
Okay,
that
that's
you don't
perfect.
want to
Yeah,
sound like that, which is a wise prompt.
yeah. It like the core message is it doesn't know what to do unless you tell it. What it will do is default to its programming, and especially in that specific thing, like my mom said, it don't make sound like AI. It's going to default sound like AI because it is AI, or it don't default to sounding like ChatGPT. It's going to sound like a generic output if you don't tell it not to do that. So telling it what to do um, is super important. That's the goal, but it's also really important to tell it what not to do. Okay, final question here, and then we can kind of get really make the assistant. Um, what information will make this better? I'm gonna say I will upload gold star examples of podcast show notes. Um, yeah, I would say that's kind of all. But this is the gold star question. It's like, what do you already have or plan to upload that the assistant will be able to use as additional context? That's where if you're building something that you've already created by hand, or in Lara's case, if you are trying to do images in the style of Julie Downing or is it Eric Carl, the guy that writes The Hungry Caterpillar, for example? You would want to take like images from the internet and say, I will upload this, or I want it in the style of this, and just be really, really specific. You can even say like, I like it in the style of Eric Carle, but I want it to be blended with the style of Michelangelo, for example. That probably wouldn't be a very good drawing, but you get the gist. Okay, so this is our output from this assistant. It's got pulling everything together. It's saying, all right, these are your copy and paste instructions. So it's giving you what the primary job is, to publish high quality, ready to publish show notes, has information about the business, who the audience is, what the outputs should always include, voice and tone, incorporate language patterns. It's always important to read this before you paste it in because if you'll find if you just blindly paste it in, which I've done a number of different times for things, um, you'll get outputs where you're like, why is it doing that? Like, I didn't tell it to do that. And then you'll realize in the instructions, it included some sentence that was like, please make it size 15 font. And you're like, I would never do that. Why did it include that? So that's kind of part of the hallucinations thing. So in order to minimize that, even with things like a custom assistant, being as specific as possible is really important. Okay, so to create an assistant, whether it's for a transcript or anything else, we're going to add one of these like cubes here, and that will be our assistant. So the way to do that, give me a second. Nope. More. Oh, here we go. Explore GPTs down here at the bottom. If you're using something like Claude, for example, which I would say I use more in the day-to-day, GPTs are called projects. Every kind of Perplexity, they're called something else, but every AI has a version of this, which is essentially your AI assistant or a project, or what we're doing is we're creating like a silo, like a box for this to work in. We're saying these are your instructions. It's still going to use things that it knows from publicly available information, but it's really just working inside the constructs of this specific task. So for example, we wouldn't ask this transcript thing to build my mom a blog or build her something else.
The other thing I would say for people in medicine, I would liken it to, like we say, make a dot phrase for anything you do over and over again that you don't want to start from scratch. That's kind of the theory of what is this called? A GPT or a project is. Something that you want to do repeatedly. So it has the custom instructions and you can just use it repeatedly for your travel planning and it knows all about you, or your recipes, or projects, if that makes sense. It is a project, but it's kind of like a dot phrase that anything you would want to use repeatedly.
Yeah.
I know you
Okay.
don't
So
know what a dot phrase is, but
I don't, but I'll just roll with that.
yeah, you'll roll with it.
So one thing I just want to touch on here, you can search GPT. So like there are a number of different, like I would say not unlimited, but just so many of these types of things. Yes, Laura, I would create a new assistant for each project. So for example, for Me, I work I work in immigration services and do a lot of like emails and selling. I have one that's just specifically for emails. I have one that's specifically for LinkedIn. I have one that's specifically for building a proposal. I have one that's specifically for building a PowerPoint. So you want it to be, and that's the part of having it be as specific as possible. Um, you really want it to be focused on this one task. And then you can also have another one that's like, um, in my context, be a sales advisor. This is everything about my product. This is everything about the industry. Um, just advise me on general things like, and then you can ask your questions like, should I make an assistant for this? Or should I make an assistant for that? What would you recommend? That's the other thing I think can be really helpful is AI knows AI best. So it's helpful to, if you're in doubt, ask AI, be like, what, and this is how I started, is I have a goal. My goal is this. What would be the best thing to tell AI to do to help me create an assistant to meet that goal? And it will give you a list of things that you need to do. Say, okay, I want my assistant to stop doing this. How would you create instructions to do that? Or how would you tell it this? What would be the most effective way? So it knows how it processes information. And this is true. I would say it's because while AI is a generally broad term, all of these different products have slightly different variations about how they interpret inputs and information. So if you jump from ChatGPT to Claude to Perplexity to Gemini, it's important to ask those specific ones how best you should write the information so they receive it. I think that's important as well. But on the GPT thing, I just want to, like, you can search GPTs for like, my wife does a lot of GIS. So there's like a GIS thing, which is like geographic information systems. It has to do with like mapping and all this technical stuff. But there are all these things that people have created. There's comments, there's 25,000 people using this. There's 50,000 people using these, like anything. Like we can take Laura's example, like children's book illustrator. I bet there's one for that. We'll see. Yeah, you could like, you could just, I don't know how good these are. You kind of have to play around with them, but people have created these already. They're publicly available, like the one that I made. A lot of the ones that I make are just like private to me, and you can make that in the settings, which I'll show you. So how you create these, we just click on create. I had already copied the instructions. We'll name our GPT podcast show notes. You want to stay, there's two toggles here, and there's a create and configure. You want to stay in this configure mode right here. The create one, it will kind of like prompt you, but I found this to be way less helpful than just talking to ChatGPT in a chat outside of this than building it here. So I would stay in the configure tab because we already have our instructions. Just copy and paste those in. Short description about what it does. Earns podcast transcripts into show notes.
And the description is just for you to remember what it does. It doesn't actually tell it anything, but in case you don't remember.
You don't actually need one. You can also have conversation starters, like literally anything you want. They'll just be little boxes that prompt. They can be hi. They can be ready for show notes. Again, you don't need these. I usually don't put them, but sometimes they're like, you will just be able to click on this and then it will start a conversation for you. So the knowledge here, this is the critical section where you would upload gold star examples of whatever output you're looking for. Looks like, sounds like, and is, you would upload that here. So,
and if you were researching, that's where you want to put real stuff so it hallucinates less.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. More focused on the output though, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So we would upload, I don't actually have any handy, but yeah. 5 of the show notes that you really like. They're formatting wise as well. Upload those. This is what my mom was talking about earlier with the recommended model. So recommended model, this is the recommended model to the user, which should be used by default for the best results. On every chat, there are different models. So You can see there's an instant one, a thinking one, 5.2, 5.3, 5.5, O3. I'm not quite sure what O3 is, but essentially they're just all like updated in different models of the same version. Some use more tokens, which are like your bandwidth or your like processing power. Some use less. Generally, the ones that are newer are more efficient. They take in more information and they do better work. Thinking ones take longer to generate a response, but usually that response is better or more comprehensive. The instant ones are good for things that you just want instantly. Hey, give me a rundown of last week's news in Siberia, for example, or something like that. So I would say no recommended model. You can use whichever one you prefer.
I just want to say that I changed to thinking mode, and I'm apparently a thinker, and I much prefer thinking mode than not thinking mode. I get outputs that are better. So I'm guessing that most people in medicine like thinking mode rather than reactive mode.
Yes. Okay. So we can ask it anything. What is your purpose, for example? Right here, this is your beta test. So we've given it all of the instructions. It's reading those in live time. On the right-hand side, this is what you should use to make sure that it knows what you're doing. Important thing to mention here is if you tell it something in here that's like, hey, update the instructions to do this, or I don't actually like how you did that, change this, it will not remember it. You need to actually physically update the instructions over here on the left-hand side. So this is just your beta version. Once you hit create, I'm going to assume this is great. Once we hit create, this is where you can either put it in the GPT store. You can give it to anybody in the link. The GPT store is that one where that we went through, like where you can see anybody can use it basically. Anyone with the link, that's the one that you're currently using or that we used that I put in the chat. Or only me. I usually do only me just because I don't really share things with people like that. And like most of these tools are like just for you, right? So then we'll hit go view the GPT, and you will see settings saved. Great. It's now podcast show notes right here. I was going to grab an example of show notes, but I don't have that handy. So essentially, what you would do, right? Copy the transcript, throw it in here, and it would immediately open that for you.
And you can see a copy of the output because I did our podcast show notes, the one that we did together, on using a similar version of this. Though I will say that what I found most helpful is we did it and then I used it for a bit and I noticed patterns that I didn't like. So then I asked Slade, what do I tell it? This is what I don't want it to do anymore. What should I tell it to change it? And it's kind of the secret of asking good questions, which is, of course, a coaching thing. But I'm not a robot, so I'm not especially great at asking robots questions. So
yeah.
That's how you refine it over time. You start using it and then you say, oh, it always gives me this and I don't want that. And you can experiment by just saying, I don't want this. What should I tell you? But
yeah, how should I update the instructions? And then you can go back in here at the top and go to edit GPT and just really edit the instructions. And I think we've done that when I've helped you.
We've done that a lot of times. If you are particular, you will want to do that.
Yeah, no, I recommended it. A lot of these tools is iteration, 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 iteration. To be quite honest, because a lot of the technology is changing and the models are changing, sometimes it'll just change on its own and it's really frustrating. So you do have to continue to iterate. That's really important. But last thing I want to mention here before we kind of open the floor for questions and wrap up is what you put. So now that we've actually created the assistant and we can ask it anything and we can have it do transcripts, synthesization and things like that, it will remember what you put in here. So it stores this context because we're on the paid version. And the other thing, you can only make these assistants if you're on the paid version. That's the other kind of, I guess, downside or just thing to mention. And it's because of the data storage and the memory storage. So as I mentioned, we're kind of making a container for this thing to work in. Anything you put in here, it will remember. So you can tell it things like, hey, I don't like that. Please remember that for all future instances. And it will do that, but it's going to be much more effective because it will still mess up. It's going to be much more effective to actually put that in the instructions. It gives us a great so to go over how to create this, how to store information once done. Um,
You need, oh, I think maybe what you're missing is you have to pull it out. If
oh
you
yeah,
want to actually store it and use it, you have to pull it out of the,
let
what do
me
you
go
call
here.
this thing?
Yeah, so this is the chat that we went through today, like we did in live time. So that's the link. You go to this link and just type in hi or whatever. You can literally type in anything, and it will start prompting you to create an assistant. What you need to pull out is after question 6. This is what I copied and pasted. It will give you the copy and paste custom instructions.
So
Review them. If you have any edits, make them through the bar
I
here.
think she's talking about the output. So when it gives me the show notes,
Oh,
I literally hit the copy button and move them to Google Docs before I upload them or take it somewhere else. It does save, if you're on the paid version, it saves all the old things. You can scroll way back, but it's hard to
let me see
find
if
things.
I can. Let me see if I can show an example.
It doesn't, it only does it if you have the assistant though. If you're just in the main chat thing, everything is all mixed up.
Correct.
Is that what you're asking, Laura? I'm not 100% sure, but
Well, first was like I got the link and I can do that and I can go there. But what if like tomorrow I just want to make my own assistant? How do I even start to make my assistant without that link? Like, can I just do it
Oh yeah.
myself?
Oh yeah. Great question. Yes.
Projects plus projects, is that where I go?
So to start doing that, just go to chat, like go to a new chat and
Okay,
just start saying, hey, I want to create, like,
an
I want to
assistant.
create an assistant. Tell it that yeah, basically the goal of
Okay,
the
just do
link,
a new chat then, really.
yeah, the goal of the
Okay,
link is to just give you an idea of really the specificity that you need.
yeah,
So if you were going to make it on your own, you would just go into the chat and say, I need to write instructions for a new assistant. Please help me craft these instructions. And then,
gotcha.
and you can say, give me prompts, like until we're done, you have all the information you need to be an excellent assistant.
once you have that, you go to that Explore GPT button and hit create. And
Yeah,
then you
down
load
here.
your new person in there. Or if they want to save yours, how do they save yours that you gave us?
The best
Explore.
way is to,
Oh, explore GPT. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
Explore GPT and then hit
explore
create.
GPT and then hit create, and you can make yours. It also says my GPTs. So here you can create a custom version, and it'll show you just all the ones that you've made here. They'll also be available on the left-hand side here as well.
But what I really suggest, and I'm going to pitch Slade here, is make one with Slade. He'll walk you through it. Then you have it. Then you can use it. And once you've done your own, like step by step, and you can ask all your dumb questions, just like I'm just like I
Yeah.
asked all my dumb questions. It took us a while, but now it works every single time, and I'm so happy. And I actually know how to create them because I've kind of walked through question by question. And I think this is an overview. You can probably do most of it, but if you want one that
Yeah.
works every time and changes your life, I just some of you might be able to do it on your own, but for me, it was so helpful to have a real person I would say, this is what I want, and he would translate it for me. It's like
Yeah, I
speaking
think
another
I
language.
touched on that in the podcast, I think, but like that's how I started too. I had a mentor who taught me how to talk to the computer. He taught me how to make one of these assistants, and then from there, you start to get better at conversing with it, knowing exactly what it knows, what it doesn't, what you need to tell it, um, and it just makes it a whole lot easier. But yeah, just want to just close up here by just going through like 5 things to take away with you. Um, One, feed AI context and don't trust its memory. So don't assume that it remembers things about you unless you have a paid version and you're working in an assistant and you've given it instructions. Um, be really like more context, the better. Tell it what it should do, tell it what it doesn't do, tell it what you like, what you don't like. Um, all the context adds an immense value to your output. Match the verification to the states. Again, do not make this your final draft, I would say, unless it's lower stakes. Always review it, always review your output, review everything. Um, AI is not perfect, it needs help, and it needs a human touch at the end. I firmly believe that. Teach it your voice, again, context is best. And I would say the best thing to do is build tools, like take that next step, build the tools to help your life. Kind of go above and beyond what the average person using AI does, which is just kind of using it as like a really enhanced Google search, and an enhanced like, just basically just talking to Google. Like there's so many cool things you can do with AI. And it's not super hard once you know how to talk to it, to be quite honest. And you can really expedite and just grow exponentially in the things that you can do with it to help your life. Last thing I'll say is if the editing takes longer than the writing, you're using it wrong. I think using it wrong is probably too strong. It just means you've built it wrong. And maybe not wrong, but maybe you haven't given it enough context. So if you, for instance, if we do this show notes output and my mom must have spent 30 minutes editing it, what was the point of making that assistant? Like, we're not doing a good job. So that's when we need to go back and iterate and make sure that we're giving it enough context, we're giving it the gold star examples, and we've really kind of, provided it all the information it needs. If you guys want to keep working with me, my mom mentioned I do group sessions. I'll be doing those kind of once a month. They'll be very similar to what we did here. I also do like individual sessions where we can build whatever you want to build in lifetime. We can iterate on it in between sessions. During the sessions, I'll teach you how to use it. And then by the end of those 3, either you can have like 1 assistant, you can have 20 assistants. Like it's really kind of whatever you want to do with it. And then the last thing, if you guys ever do want custom tools for your business, for your life, and you were like, I don't really want to do this, I just want to be handed something that works, I can build those as well. And yeah, again, just final thoughts, like AI should really make us more human, not less. Like at the end of the day, we are human. There's so many things that we can do that AI can't. And the goal of this is to really make the computers work for us, to give us more time back so we can do things that only we can do. I know we are up on time. Thanks everybody so much for joining. If you guys do have questions, I'll stay on for another 5 minutes or so. But yeah, thanks so much for joining.
If anyone has questions, feel free to. Beautiful. That was really helpful. Thank you. But feel free, you can unmute and ask your questions. Laura, do you have a question?
Oh yeah,
I
go
was
for it.
just going to say thanks. That was really helpful. I'm just going to play around with it to start, and then we'll contact you if I need to, because I haven't even I started it, and then it's like nothing saves, and all these problems come up, and then now I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. I need some help.
That's what I found. So.
That's the point of the session, is to give you like the confidence and just the background where you can feel comfortably like, all right, I know a bit of the basics, like let me dive in and try to do it myself.
Yeah, just something at least I'm just start myself and just have fun with it, and then I'm going to need some help.
It's okay. I needed a lot of help.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Wherever you are, go ahead.
My question was, in considering the different ones as you pay for them, do you think one is better than the offers more has more value as far as a paid?
That's a question I get a lot. I do think it depends on what you're trying to do. I can only speak from my experience. I used to use ChatGPT. Now I use Claude, paid version. I have found that for writing and for emails, I just find that it's a better thinker. It has better outputs from a paid version. And then there's also, with a paid version, Claude allows you, I think ChatGPT does this too, but I'm less familiar with it. Like you can use Claude code, you can build apps, you can connect things a lot easier from what I've seen. So right now I am all about Claude. Perplexity AI is best for doing research, for sure. And that was built, I think that was literally, when I first learned about it, it was for scholars, was what it was for. So I use it to draft reports. Just if I need to research anything, it does a really good job like going into the computer and literally researching things for you and then coming back with a great output. It takes a long time to get the output, but it's really good for that. Not so good at writing emails, not so good at summarizing things, but really good at researching things on the internet.
And none of them are that expensive, so you can also try them out and see which one gives you the things you like best. I actually still have, I have ChatGPT and Claude right now because I was trying to switch over, but some of the things I still like better in ChatGPT. So I'm like, well, they're $20 a month. And so maybe until I figure out who I am, like how I'm going to relate to it, which I don't really know yet, I'm okay sort of testing them and doing different things on different ones until I figure out where I land. And then you can move it, or you can get, which I did, I get Slade to tell you how to move your projects from one to the other so that they're all in one place. Because there's a way to do that.
Okay. Yeah. I just asked Claude what it could do for me too. So I'm
They
going to look over that
they don't
list.
talk to each other, unfortunately. They should, but they don't.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions? Feel free.
I wonder, as not as a clinician writing notes anymore, but sometimes when I've had a visit with a doctor, one of my physicians, a really crazy error will pop up in their clinical notes about our conversation.
Yeah.
And how can you make it easy for busy, stressed out docs to edit their clinical notes so that they don't have embarrassing mistakes that probably only I read because I'm
Yeah.
particular like all of you.
Yeah.
I don't have a great answer for that. I wish I did. I think the best, there are a couple things. One, it's really understanding how the notes are being captured. So if it's through voice, I think one thing my mom and I have talked about is before you go into the room where there's multiple voices talking, sometimes, maybe it's just you and them, or maybe your spouse is there, or someone, or your kid, if it's a pediatrician, a lot of voices and a lot of inputs can get discombobulated and cause confusion with the AI. So when you're in a quiet place, probably outside the exam room, just, hey, this is the context I want, whatever, 52 years old, back pain, whatever it might be, anything you wanted to know going into it. I think there are two to three people in the room. These are their names. Or maybe even at the start of the exam, just taking a second to do that and maybe asking the patient, hey,
have them introduce themselves so they know all the voices. Yeah.
Yeah, because it does voice recognition, and it does that based on tones and sound waves. So if you actually, I'm just thinking this, but if, I'm assuming that's how the technology works, because that's how my brother and I have built one, but having people introduce themselves so that the AI knows who's talking when could be helpful. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think I told this to my mom, you would want to talk to the developer of the application and tell them your feedback, hey, it keeps doing this. Can we fix that?
And I told Slade we can't talk to them. But I have a thought about that, just having listened to Slade, that if you know that the robot is listening to you, you actually want to structure your visit knowing that there's a robot listening. And so you can clarify, ask your questions in a really clear way so that the robot knows which part of the note it's going to go in. Or tell the robot that this is, we're going to get to the, your history now. And if you think that, it's confusing, you can also do that sort of reflective listening. The robot's listening to you reflectively. And so if you notice that whatever company your organization is using to listen. And then I think the thing for your physicians, which maybe they're not doing, is you actually do have to reread the note. I think we think it's hallucinating, but a robot didn't go to med school. And even the people writing your robots, since my children are robots, they don't know what you're talking about. And we just assume that they have, medical level knowledge. It'll get better and better. But until then, we either have to recognize that it doesn't have the knowledge, or that we have to be really, really clear. And so you might find when you reread them that you have kind of instructions to tell the robot before you walk in the room that you want it to do, or that you can help guide it as it interprets your language. It's kind of like, we talked in the podcast about being a translator, and when you have a translator in the room, you kind of have to tell the translator how to translate. And we do that in front of the patient. So you can tell the robot how to be a translator. And then I would say, ask Slade how to talk to robots, because I don't actually know how to do that at all. I just ask it. It's just a language that I don't speak. And I think that's okay. We don't have to know how to speak it, but if you can get a few tools that really like expedite it so you don't have to keep editing all the time, that would be better.
I will try to share this with my PCP.
I was going to say, keep sharing. They will thank you. They will thank you. For sure.
Because he had me in his notes. He said that I was being kept awake all night by my barking dogs, and actually, that was something he said about himself.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's just one example, and there've been.
Yes.
I mean, each time I read his notes, there's something.
You might want to review them.
Well, that's a good point though, and it's important, right? Because if AI is going to continue to infiltrate and be a part of these medical decisions, you don't want incorrect information in it as well. So I do think it's also important, if you do notice that, please let them know, because you don't want them AI to think in 5 years you have 2 barking dogs, and maybe that's the cause of your insomnia versus something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh gosh.
Thank you. Thank you for the advice.
Anybody
What
else
else?
have any questions? Just unmute, because it's hard to see you all on the screen. Awesome. Well, if not, I will send out an email with the recording, and I'll send out Slade's information. It's also in the show notes that the robot made for our podcast together. And it's AI with Slade, is that right? .com?
Yeah.
I was going to say.
AIwithSlade.com.
Yeah. And you can email him. Several of my friends have already emailed him. So hopefully you'll email him. I'll just say he's amazingly helpful. So I brought him on to help him, but also because I want all my friends to know how to use it, because it's here whether we like it or not. And we might as well figure out how to use it to help us rather than to slow us down or just add to our frustrations in life. Yeah. So thank you guys all for coming. That was super fun. Thank you, Slade, for your time. Slade is also going to do a similar session on May 4th, I believe, for
4:30 Pacific time.
Yeah, for Sharon McLaughlin's Female Physician Entrepreneurs Group. So if you want to hear it again, I will try to get the link from her, or if you go into her Facebook group, you can sign up that way somehow. But she's going to have Slade share this with her group too. So if you want, I will try to get the link from her, or maybe you have it, Slade, and then I can share it by email. If people want to listen again, it will be a very similar session, but sometimes hearing it twice is helpful. So,
or different questions too, I think is always helpful what other people ask, because we sometimes learn more from what our peers ask than what's actually presented.
Yes, exactly. Beautiful. Thanks for coming, and nice to see you all. And for those of you who join me for yoga, I'm going to teach on Sunday this week. So I will see you then if you want to join me. Nice to see you.
Thanks so much, everybody.